The ocean has always been a place of abundance, a living engine that feeds billions and shapes entire cultures. For generations, fishing communities have read the tides and seasons like a calendar, trusting that the fish would return as they always had. But in 2023, in several parts of the world, something unprecedented happened. Fish that had filled nets for decades vanished almost overnight. Harbors that once buzzed with activity fell silent. Processing plants shut their doors. Fishermen stood on empty decks staring at empty seas. It wasn't a slow decline. It was a collapse. And it sent a chilling message across the globe. The marine ecosystem is failing. In the Bering Sea, one of the most productive fishing regions on Earth, the snow crab fishery was closed for the first time in history. Billions of crabs had simply disappeared. Scientists estimated that up to 10 billion snow crabs died between 2018 and 2021, a mass die-off only fully recognized by 2022 and 2023. By the time officials confirmed it, the damage was already done. Communities that depended on crab for their livelihoods were left with nothing. In California, the Pacific sardine and anchovy populations, once so plentiful they seemed endless, crashed to critically low levels. The state closed key fisheries in 2023, not because of politics but because there were no fish left to catch. On the Atlantic coast, similar stories emerged. Cod, herring, and mackerel stocks, already under pressure, showed alarming declines. In parts of West Africa and Southeast Asia, small-scale fishers reported empty nets after generations of reliable harvests. This was not a coincidence. It was not bad luck. It was the result of a perfect storm, overfishing, ocean heating, and the breakdown of the marine food web. For decades, industrial fishing fleets have scoured the oceans with increasingly advanced technology. Sonar, satellite tracking, massive trawlers, and long lines stretching for miles made it possible to catch fish faster than they could reproduce. What was once a balance between humans and the sea became an extraction race. Many fisheries were pushed beyond sustainable limits. Quotas were ignored or set too high. Illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing flourished, especially in international waters. In some regions, up to one-third of all fish caught are estimated to be illegal. The ocean was treated as an infinite resource. But it is not. Overfishing alone weakens fish populations, but it also does something more dangerous. It strips away the resilience of the ecosystem. When a population is reduced, it becomes more vulnerable to disease, temperature changes, and food shortages. That vulnerability would prove fatal as the oceans began to heat. The years leading up to 2023 were the hottest on record for the planet, and the oceans absorbed most of that heat. Marine heat waves, periods of unusually warm water, became more frequent, more intense, and longer lasting. In the North Pacific, temperatures rose several degrees above normal. In the North Atlantic, heat records were shattered. To fish, temperature is not a comfort issue. It is a survival issue. Warmer water holds less oxygen. It increases metabolic stress. Fish need more food just to survive, while at the same time their environment offers less. For cold water species like snow crab, cod, and certain herring, the heat is devastating. In the Bering Sea, the warming water didn't just stress the snow crab. It changed the entire ecosystem. The cold pool, a layer of frigid bottom water that acted as a refuge for crabs and other species, shrank dramatically. Crabs were pushed into warmer, predator-rich waters. Their metabolism sped up, their food supply declined, and mass starvation followed. By the time scientists pieced it together, billions were already dead. This is where the food chain comes in. The ocean is not a collection of isolated species. It is a web. Phytoplankton feed zooplankton. Zooplankton feed small fish. Small fish feed larger fish, seabirds, and marine mammals. When one link breaks, the damage ripples outward. In warming seas, plankton communities are changing. Some species decline, others shift their range, and bloom patterns become unpredictable. In some areas, plankton crashes mean there is simply not enough food at the base of the food chain. In others, harmful algal blooms spread, producing toxins that kill fish or make them unsafe to eat. Small forage fish like sardines, anchovies, and herring are especially vulnerable. They sit at a critical point in the food web. When they collapse, predators from tuna to seabirds to whales feel the impact. In 2023, the disappearance of these small fish in several regions led to seabird die-offs, starving sea lions, and disrupted migration patterns. Fishermen were often the first to notice. Nets came up empty. Sonar screens that once glowed with life showed nothing. Some thought it was a temporary shift. Others knew better. They had seen declines before, but never like this. Never this fast. As the reality set in, governments moved to close fisheries. Not as a punishment, but as a last line of defense. In Alaska, the snow crab season was canceled. In California, sardine and anchovy fisheries were shut down. In parts of the Atlantic, emergency restrictions were imposed. These closures protected what little remained, but they also devastated coastal economies. Entire towns depend on fishing. Not just the fishermen, but the processors, truck drivers, shipbuilders, ice suppliers, and market sellers. When the fish disappear, so does the income. In 2023, thousands of workers were laid off. Families who had fished for generations faced an uncertain future. Some boats were sold. Others were simply abandoned. The social impact was immediate and severe. Mental health crises rose in fishing communities. Debt piled up. Younger generations began leaving, seeing no future in an industry that could vanish overnight. And yet the crisis did not come out of nowhere. Scientists had been warning for years that marine ecosystems were under extreme stress. Reports documented declining biodiversity, warming waters, acidification, and overfishing. The signs were there: smaller fish, shorter seasons, unpredictable runs. But the system continued, driven by global demand and short-term profit. This is the core of marine ecosystem failure. It is not a single disaster. It is a slow unraveling that suddenly becomes visible when a key species collapses. When a fish disappears overnight, it feels shocking. But in reality, it is the final stage of a long process. Years of pressure accumulate. The system weakens. Then, one hot year, one bad season, one tipping point, and the collapse becomes undeniable. The frightening truth is that 2023 may not be an isolated event. It may be a preview. Climate models show that ocean temperatures will continue to rise. Marine heat waves will become more common. Species will be forced to move, adapt, or die. At the same time, global seafood demand is increasing, not decreasing. Aquaculture is growing, but it often relies on wild-caught fish for feed, adding pressure to the same ecosystems. If fishing practices do not change, if emissions do not fall, if ecosystems are not given time to recover, more collapses are likely. Not just of single species, but of entire fisheries. And when a fishery collapses, it is not just an environmental problem. It is a food security problem. It is a cultural problem. It is an economic problem. For millions of people, fish is the primary source of protein. In coastal and island nations, it is not a luxury, it is survival. When fish vanish, hunger follows. The disappearance of fish in 2023 was a warning written in empty nets and silent docks. It showed how fragile the system has become, how tightly climate, industry, and ecology are now intertwined. The ocean has always been resilient. It has survived ice ages, mass extinctions, and shifting continents, but resilience is not infinite. It depends on balance. And that balance is breaking. What vanished overnight was not just a fish. It was an illusion. The illusion that the sea will always provide. No matter how much we take, no matter how much we heat, no matter how little we give back. The question now is not whether more fish will disappear. The question is how many and how soon.